Welcome back. More American manufacturers being called upon to create medical supplies to help protect workers on the front lines of this coronavirus fight. 3M, which is already in the process of producing 50 million N95 masks, now claiming the demand has exceeded the production capacity. This even after President Trump invoked the Defense Production Act against 3M. The president tweeted this week this. He says, "We hit 3M hard today after seeing what they were doing with their masks. The P Act, Production Act, all the way. Big surprise to many in government as to what they were doing. Will have a very big price to pay," writes the president. Joining me right now on the phone is the chairman and CEO of 3M, Mike Roman. Mike, thanks very much for weighing in here. Obviously, you saw the president's tweet and the pushback that you're getting. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, good morning, Maria. I'm happy to be on again. Let me start with this. The narrative that we are not doing everything to maximize the delivery of respirators in our home country is false. Nothing can be further from the truth, and I'm happy to talk about that. The other idea out there that 3M is not doing all it can to fight price gouging and unauthorized reselling is absurd. We are doing everything we can to fight COVID-19 and support the healthcare workers here at home. So up until yesterday, we had been really proud of all the things that we were doing and hearing from every direction, save a few negative narratives. But the narratives out there, they're just not true.
All right, let's talk about that here, because 3M is one of those few companies in the world right now that the whole world is looking toward to make sure you can produce what we need in the face of this massive pandemic, Mike. The administration has also requested that 3M stop exporting respirators that can be currently manufactured in the United States, stop exporting them to other countries, because we're in an emergency situation right now. Hospitals are on the brink. They can't even take a heart attack victim, a stroke victim, because they are overrun with coronavirus cases. Can you do something that would turn on your manufacturing to help your home country in a bigger way, Mike?
Yeah, Maria, we have done just that. Starting in January, we saw this coming. And we learned back in SARS and H1N1 that we had to keep idle capacity available because we are a leader in this area of respirators. We needed to be ready to step up. And so we have idle capacity in the United States that we brought online well before there was a call for a COVID fight here in the U.S. And we maximized production of that. That got us to the 35 million respirators. Normally, we produce 16 to 20 million respirators a month in the U.S. So we have doubled our production. We continue to focus on ramping up. We have produced millions and millions of respirators, and now we have arranged to import more masks from China. We have an agreement to allow us to export 10 million additional masks a month out of China. And in our normal production, going back even as when we started in January, a small percentage, less than 10% of our respirators in the United States are exported to Canada and Latin America to support the healthcare workers there. We are often the sole provider of those respirators in those countries. And so with the imports from China, we are a net importer around that. And as we've been telling the administration days and days, and it's important to understand this, we're happy to shift our overseas production to the U.S. However, there are consequences on a humanitarian level, and that includes stopping exports to Canada and Latin America.
Yeah, no, I understand. And Canada and Latin America are at a different place right now with COVID-19 than America is, right? I mean, America now has become an epicenter. And an emergency management official in Florida was on Fox News this week, and he is alleging that 3M is shipping protective equipment to foreign countries who outbid U.S. buyers. That official says he realized this was happening when he could not purchase the essential equipment that he needed from distributors, and the distributor said, well, we couldn't buy them because somebody else is willing to pay more. So are you selling this equipment to the highest bidder, Mike?
We are, Maria, let me say this from the beginning. We have not and would never use prices for supplies like this, vital supplies in this crisis, to not sell to the highest bidder. We manufacture respirators. We sell them through authorized distributors, and we sell directly to government. And the distributors take those to the customers that have the greatest needs. And we've been working with FEMA in the U.S. to make sure we are prioritizing those with greatest needs. Now, authorization for FDA in early March, we were selling respirators into our industrial channels in the U.S. and around the world, and those distributors will sell to the demand that they see. And so a lot of the reselling that is going on now is a result of inventory as that was built up at that time. Since the emergency use authorization, we are tracking what we are selling to the end users. We're working with our distributors to ensure that we are getting that through, and there is not, and we are not seeing the price gouging through them. It's the resellers that are in there where the highest bidder kind of issue is occurring. So it really is we are all over this with our team, making sure that we are only going through authorized sellers and that we are managing that price and preventing price gouging. We're working with the DOJ and state AGs too to aggressively pursue and identify those price gougers.
Well, I mean, look, this is really important, obviously. I mean, in some markets, you are the only producer of respirators. There are some markets that you're the only ones to make these respirators. And we have healthcare workers that are on the front lines and people that are getting sick in America. So is there a way that you can ensure that you're not relying on distributors to go sell your equipment that may have been sold to them a while ago to the highest bidder, and to communicate clearly to the American people that there's no taking advantage of a crisis situation? Mike?
Well, we can be aggressive in helping to pursue those. We can identify counterfeits. We can identify resellers who are not authorized distributors. We work with the DOJ and the state AGs to go after them. We work with our e-channel partners to ensure that there's no price gouging through those channels. We are taking every action we take. And we are working to bring more of our own production from outside the U.S. into the U.S. As I mentioned, working with China now as COVID-19 outbreak subsides there, redeploying more of that production and getting approvals to do that. And we're working with the White House to help accelerate that and increase that. And we're looking for that as the next step in increasing our capacity here.
Well, I'm glad you brought up China, Mike, because this is a question that I asked you a week ago when you joined me on Mornings with Maria on Fox Business, because I was told early in this crisis, and I went on the air with it a month and a half ago, that there were ships that were carrying goods that America needed, important protective gear that was made in China, and those ships were told to turn around because China needs the equipment, and those contracts that were in place with American companies, American hospitals, were not going to get the gloves, were not going to get the masks. Now, you've got your factories on the ground in China. If Xi Jinping decides to say to you, Mike Roman, well, your factories are in China, you're going to make everything for China, and we're not going to send anything exporting to the United States, you've got to listen to him, right? I mean, you're dealing with the communist country.
It's more than just China. We've seen export restrictions come up on PPE in various places around the world, and that's the risks and go about this. And that's why we've been working with the administration and with others to try to work positively and open up the opportunity to move goods where they need to be. So there are export restrictions in the EU. There are export restrictions in various parts of Asia, and we have been working through that since the outbreak in January. So it is something that's challenging to navigate. China now has opened up exports, and so we do have the ability, and we're working with the administration to add even more availability of export and to get approval to bring those products, which aren't always U.S. standard products, but they can still help. We need to get approval to bring those into the U.S., and that's all being expedited, and we're excited to work on going from 10 million up as we can.
But this is a really important point, because so many companies like 3M have operations in China. But when we're in the middle of a crisis in the United States, what are you going to do if the Chinese government tells you there will be no export? You've got export restrictions. I mean, you've got a procedure in place to produce products for the local economies that you operate in. And that's what you've been doing, producing products in China for the Chinese. But when the U.S. has a major crisis situation where we are in right now, where our healthcare workers cannot get access to that, what are you going to do? Are you rethinking any of your supply chains now that we're in this crisis and you see what has happened in your home of America?
And Maria, our model in 3M has always been to produce close to the marketplace. We go local for local, and that includes the U.S. And we are a net exporter out of the U.S. with the production we have here across our portfolio of products. In respiratory, we have a model to produce here the Americas, and now we're expanding capacity. We're rethinking that, frankly, to really what kind of capacity do we need to meet the demand. We have demand that's more than we can meet in our production today. We're adding capacity. We've gone up to 35 million near term. We'll get to 50 million per month in June, and we'll get to 90 million respirators per month at the end of it. And we have investments to go up from there as well to meet what we see as an increased demand domestically. So we clearly didn't have a capacity to take it on at the levels that COVID-19 has demanded. And we are not alone. We're not the only company in this marketplace, but we're an important provider. And we are rethinking that and right now investing not only to expand right in the face of April and May, but to be ready as we go forward. We responded to the RFP from the U.S. government for 500 million respirators, and we were awarded part of that. And we've got to be ready to deliver on that, and then we'll be examining it from there. But we are definitely stepping up as we go near term and through the end of the year.
So if you say that you were doing everything according to plan and trying to meet capacity that is skyrocketing, why do you think the president had to use the Defense Production Act on 3M?
Well, it's been a focus of the Defense Production Act. I would say that we've been telling the administration for days and days, and it's important to understand that we're happy to shift our overseas production to the U.S. We're already a net importer, but there are consequences, as you highlighted. We are often the sole provider for healthcare workers in many countries, and that was the way we built out this capability around the world to be able to support them. So there will be consequences. They will not have access to product, and they're in the middle of this COVID-19 fight too. So we're happy to do that. We'll comply with the DPA. It was important that we have the DPA to really help us really aggressively go after that because of those consequences on the humanitarian level. And then the U.S. Exports to Canada, it's the same challenge. We are often the sole provider to healthcare providers in Canada. It's important if we're going to stop those exports that we all understand the consequences, and that's the DPA has given us that clarity, and we will comply.
So what do you think the consequences will be if the U.S. does not get the proper number of respirators and ventilators and protective gear like masks and gloves, if millions and millions of people in America die, Mike?
Yeah, we are all in doing everything we can. We are, as I said, bringing everything we can in. It's difficult for us to play God. We are really working to make the best decisions. We're partnering with FEMA in the U.S. and partnering with the government to help us really navigate this. We're doing everything we can in our power to maximize production. And again, we're not the only company here, but we take this to the heart. We have 96,000 cameras around the world.
Do you feel you have the capacity? Mike, do you feel you have the capacity to produce the enough masks, gloves, and respirators right now?
Well, we produce in PPE. We produce respirators. We don't produce gloves, and we have a small amount of masks that we have been importing and have been challenged around as well. So it's really respirators for us. It's N95, the now famous N95 respirator, and that's the focus. Right. We work with, there are other providers in those other categories.
So do you feel you have enough product right now to meet the needs of American healthcare workers right now?
Rhea, I don't. One of the challenges is looking through the demand to the use. I think we have visibility that we, with other companies and us, and ramping up the way we are, that we can meet the immediate need. And we've got to make sure that we are focused on that, providing respirators where they're being used, not putting respirators into inventory someplace, not having them go into the channel, and certainly not having anything go into reselling channels. Our focus is authorized distributors. These are 6 large reputable firms in the U.S. We're working in partnership with them and FEMA to make sure we get it there. I think we can do our part in that along with the other companies. And with the help of the DPA and the work in expanding our exports from China, we will bring more into the market and do a bigger part of the share.
The president said that there will be a big price to pay. Have you spoken with the president, Mike?
We've been in contact with the administration, but I have not spoken directly with the president, no.
Mike, thanks very much for addressing this very important issue. We so appreciate your time today. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, Maria.